Imagine a plush private clinic on the outskirts of Beverly Hills. The waiting room glitters with polished floors, marble countertops, and the hush of whispered secrets. A man, Jason Harrington, paces back and forth, dressed in a tailored navy suit that screams wealth. But look closer at his face. Behind his handsome features lies panic. In a corner chair, his wife Isabella sits weeping into trembling hands, her pregnant belly a heartbreaking testament to her dreams. Meanwhile, perched right beside Jason during the ultrasound, is another young woman, eyes glinting with triumph. This is no ordinary hospital visit. This is the day everything changes. Jason Harrington woke before sunrise, the silence of his Beverly Hills estate pressing down on him. He slipped out of bed, carefully avoiding waking his wife Isabella, whose soft breathing was the only sound in the room. On the nightstand, their wedding photo stared back at him, her smile radiant, his confident. That version of him seemed like a stranger now. In the mirror, Jason barely recognized the man he had become. Shame lingered behind his polished exterior. He dressed meticulously in a crisp white shirt and tailored navy suit, the armor of a man trying to hold his life together. As he stepped into his sports car, a text lit up on the screen. "Don't be late. 9 a.m. sharp for the ultrasound. Charlotte." His mistress. His complication. The woman now carrying his child. Isabella appeared at the doorway, her hands resting on her pregnant belly. "You're heading to the office this early." He forced a smile. "Big meeting downtown. I'll call you later." "Okay." He kissed her cheek, avoiding her searching eyes. She nodded, but worry shadowed her face. Jason pulled out of the driveway, feeling the weight of her trust and the lie he carried sink deeper. At the private clinic, Charlotte Devereaux waited in a green designer dress, her growing bump just visible. She looked poised, confident, already assuming a place in Jason's life that hadn't been granted. The reception area gleamed white walls, lilac-scented air, silence that cloaked secrets. "You look nervous," Charlotte said as he approached. "I'm here, aren't I?" he replied flatly, signing paperwork. Inside the dim ultrasound room, the technician greeted them and began her work. Jason sat beside Charlotte as the screen came to life, waves of black and white revealing the flicker of a heartbeat. A tiny, undeniable life. Charlotte squeezed his hand. "That's our baby," she whispered, tears in her eyes. Jason stared at the screen, feeling a rush of emotion. Guilt, awe, and dread twisted into one unbearable knot. Midway through, he excused himself, claiming he needed the restroom. He stepped into the hallway, trying to catch his breath, heart pounding in his ears. That's when he saw her. Isabella. She stood at the end of the corridor, pale, confused, and visibly shaken. Her eyes locked onto his, then flicked to the exam room behind him. "Jason." Her voice cracked. "Who's in there with you?" He opened his mouth, but couldn't speak. Behind him, Charlotte's voice called out, "Jason, are you coming back?" A nurse nearby called Mrs. Harrington. "The doctor will see you now." The world tilted. 2 lives, 2 pregnancies, 1 truth crashing down in real time. Jason took a hesitant step forward. "Isabella." She stepped back. "No. Don't say a word." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she turned and walked away. He stood, frozen, heart pounding. Charlotte appeared in the doorway, sensing something had happened. Her expression hardened. Was that your wife? Jason nodded numbly. Well, Charlotte said coolly, I guess the truth's out. The ultrasound appointment finished in near silence. Jason barely heard the technician announce, "It's a boy." Charlotte smiled faintly, but Jason's thoughts were far from celebratory. He had just destroyed everything. Later outside in the parking lot, Charlotte slipped into her car, her tone sharp. I won't be a secret anymore, Jason. This child deserves better. Make a choice. Before he could respond, she drove off. Jason remained alone, staring at the road where both women had disappeared. His phone showed no messages, no missed calls. Isabella was gone. He had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. The day that began with a lie had ended in full collapse. And the fallout was only beginning. Isabella's heart pounded so loudly, she thought the whole hallway could hear it. She had watched the text messages pile up on Jason's phone for months. She had heard him make hushed calls, stepping out of their bedroom late at night, while she pretended to be asleep. She felt the distance grow in his eyes whenever he looked at her baby bump. Initially, she believed it was just pre-fatherhood jitters, but her intuition told her it was more. And after one tip from a friend, Annalise Brennan, who spotted him at a restaurant with a beautiful woman who was visibly pregnant, Isabella couldn't ignore it any longer. So she did what a desperate wife might do. She followed him, hired a private investigator. Not quite. She wanted to see for herself, to not let a rumor fill in the blanks. And so on that morning she tailed him to the clinic. Now, standing in front of him, the evidence was undeniable. Her husband was there with another woman. Another pregnant woman. Jason wore that navy suit she had picked out for him months ago, looking every bit the successful entrepreneur. But beneath that facade, Isabella sensed his dread. Her voice cracked when she spoke again. "Jason," she said, taking a trembling step forward. "Who is she?" Behind him. Charlotte stepped into the hallway, one manicured hand resting protectively over her belly. The expression on Charlotte's face was a mixture of defiance and satisfaction, as though she had expected this collision all along. Maria Santos, the ultrasound technician, hovered uncertainly in the doorway, sense of professional courtesy, telling her to step back from the unfolding domestic drama. Jason's voice felt strangled in his throat. He looked from Isabella's tear-stained face to Charlotte's tense gaze. I can explain," he managed. But his words came out hollow. A quiet hush pressed in from all sides. Isabella felt tears prick her eyes. She'd imagined confronting her husband with evidence of his betrayal, perhaps in the privacy of their own home. Not in a sterile clinic hallway, not while pregnant, and certainly not in front of the other woman. Charlotte, unable to remain silent, took a step forward. "Look, we didn't mean for you to find out like this," she said, though her voice held no real apology. She glanced at Jason. But now, you know, it sounded less like a confession and more like a victory cry. At that moment, Dr. Howard Brenner, the clinic's obstetrician, appeared checking on the commotion. He recognized Isabella from her prenatal appointments. The confusion on his face deepened as he saw Charlotte, also pregnant, standing with the same man. Realization set in, and Dr. Brenner quickly gestured for everyone to calm down. "Mrs. Harrington." "Are you okay?" he asked gently. "If you need privacy, we have another room where—" But Isabella lifted a hand, her tears flowing freely now. "No, I just need to leave," she gasped. She couldn't bear to see the ultrasound room, the monitors, the new life in Charlotte's womb. A twisted mirror of her own pregnancy. In the background, a handful of patients stared from the waiting room. Whispers began speculation swirling. For a moment it felt as though the entire clinic was closing in around them, suffocating them with scandal and heartbreak. Jason, in a panic, reached for Isabella's arm. "Isabella, please wait. Let me talk to you." But she pulled back as though his touch burned her. "Don't," she snapped, voice shaking. "Don't you dare." With that she turned and ran, tears blurring her vision. She fled through the front doors into the bright sunshine of the Beverly Hills morning, a place that suddenly felt as cold as any winter. Dr. Brenner cleared his throat, stepping forward to reassert some professionalism. "Mr. Harrington, Ms. Devereaux, perhaps we should conduct this privately?" He gestured toward the ultrasound room, willing to let them continue if they wanted. But the atmosphere was ruined. Charlotte dropped her gaze, feeling the weight of Jason's attention slip away. He was glancing towards the door, obviously torn between chasing after his wife and staying with his pregnant mistress. She bit her lip, a silent fury building in her. "Well," she demanded, "are we done here? Because I don't need to watch you run after her." Jason's mind churned with confusion. He turned to Dr. Brenner with a tight smile. "Let's wrap this up quickly," he said. "I need to make sure Charlotte is okay, and then I'll—" He paused, swallowing hard. "I'll handle the situation." It sounded far too clinical for the emotional warfare that had just erupted. Still, Charlotte returned to the exam bed. The ultrasound proceeded in near silence, only the static hum of the machine filling the room. The tiny heartbeat once again flashed on the monitor. Jason stared, numb. He felt the miracle of life, overshadowed by guilt so fierce it threatened to consume him. Charlotte's face was stony tears of anger, glistening at the corners of her eyes. "It's a boy," Dr. Brenner announced quietly, trying to inject some positivity. Charlotte turned her head, meeting Jason's eyes. A boy. Another Harrington heir. Another thread in the tangled web he'd spun. Jason nodded, a million thoughts raging in his mind. How would he handle the scandal? The heartbreak, the unstoppable consequences that would devour his marriage and possibly his reputation if the story spilled into the public. For all his wealth and influence, there were some damages that even money couldn't repair. After finalizing the appointment, Dr. Brenner left them with a parting remark. "Please schedule another checkup in 4 weeks." And then he was gone, leaving them alone in the ultrasound room. Charlotte changed back into her emerald green dress, her belly no longer glistening with the ultrasound gel. She turned to Jason, voice laced with a tremor of fury. "You think I'm going to be the second choice from now on? Do you, now that your wife knows, are you going to run back to her and pretend I don't exist?" She crossed her arms, glaring at him with a challenge in her eyes. Jason inhaled, steeling himself. "No, listen, Charlotte. I'm not leaving you, but this is complicated. Isabella's pregnant too. She's my wife." Charlotte let out a mocking laugh. "Yes, I know that. But do you realize something? We're both carrying your children. We both have claims on you." The words struck him like bullets. Charlotte's eyes narrowed. "Decide whose tears matter more, Jason. Mine or hers?" A jolt of panic rippled through him. He had never seen Charlotte so demanding, so ready to stake her territory. Yet in some twisted way, this was exactly what he had orchestrated with his lies. He faced the reality he had dreaded. No matter which way he turned, the cost of betrayal demanded a price he wasn't sure he could pay. They left the exam room and made their way to the clinic lobby, which felt like a stage set after the final curtain. The few onlookers had returned to scrolling through their phones, but the tension lingered like a metallic taste in the air. Jason escorted Charlotte to her car, a sleek black coupe, silently praying that Isabella hadn't left yet. As soon as Charlotte was settled, she looked up at him from the driver's seat. "I'm not going to be your dirty secret forever, Jason. This child deserves more." With that, she sped off, leaving him standing in the parking lot, staring after her. A wave of desolation swept over him. He glanced around, hoping to see Isabella's sedan, but she was gone. For a moment he thought of calling her, but he knew Isabella wouldn't pick up. Not now. Not while her heart was still breaking. Instead, he slowly walked to his own car, each step a heavier weight of shame. He pressed the key fob, slid into the driver's seat, and closed his eyes. How many times had he fantasized about having everything a perfect marriage, a thriving business, a beautiful mistress, a child from each. That fantasy was now a nightmare coming to life. He opened his phone. Missed calls, none. Messages, none. Isabella was in the wind, possibly calling her closest friends or family. Maybe her father, Charles Montemayor, who had never quite trusted Jason from the start. Or maybe she was just crying somewhere alone, devastated. Jason let his head fall against the steering wheel. Once upon a time, he'd been a carefree heir to a fortune, indulging in the city's luxuries without consequence. Now the price was coming due, and it was not measured in dollars but in heartbreak. He looked at the clinic's sign in the rearview mirror, shining in the Californian sun. A place that represented new life, but for him it had become the site of the darkest day of his existence. Little did he know this was only the beginning. The meltdown that started in that hallway was about to unleash a storm that would test every relationship in his life. Isabella drove aimlessly for nearly an hour, her tears blurring the roads that meandered through Los Angeles. When she finally pulled over in a quiet residential neighborhood, she leaned against her steering wheel and sobbed into her hands. Everything she'd suspected was true. Jason's distance, the late-night calls, the restlessness, he couldn't hide it all, had a name and a face: Charlotte Devereux, pregnant mistress. As the sky shifted to midday brightness, Isabella composed herself enough to dial the one number she trusted more than any other. Her best friend, Serena Coleman, answered. The moment Isabella heard Serena's voice, the dam broke once more. Stumbling through tears, she relayed the horrific details: the clinic, the mistress, the ultrasound that confirmed Jason's duplicity. "That snake," Serena hissed through the phone. "Come over. Now. You shouldn't be alone." Half an hour later, Isabella was ensconced in Serena's airy loft in downtown LA, an urban sanctuary filled with vibrant art pieces and comfortable cushions. Serena greeted her with a fierce hug, leading her to the couch where a tray of herbal tea and tissues awaited. For a while, Isabella sat in silence, tears slipping down her cheeks, while her friend just held her hand. "Do you want me to call your family?" Serena finally asked. Isabella shook her head. "Not yet. I can't handle the questions right now. My father will be outraged. My mother. God, she'll start planning an elaborate confrontation." She took a deep breath. "I need to think about everything." Though her hand trembled around the teacup, Isabella forced herself to take a sip. The warmth spread through her a small comfort. "I don't know what to do," she confessed. "Should I file for divorce? This is all so final." Serena's eyes softened. "You have to decide what's best for you and for your baby. That might mean leaving him, or it might not. But you can't make that decision without talking to him. Figure out the facts. Is he in love with her? Does he want to leave you for her? She paused, searching Isabella's face. Is it just about the baby? Or is there more, Isabella? Drew a shaky breath. Images from that morning flashed in her mind. Jason sitting beside Charlotte in the ultrasound room, the softness in his eyes as they listened to that heartbeat. A jolt of jealousy tore through her. The possibility that Jason might actually love Charlotte clawed at her insides. She closed her eyes, feeling nauseated. Back in the Harrington mansion, Jason entered the grand foyer, feeling as though it were a tomb rather than a home. Marble floors gleamed, reflecting crystal chandeliers overhead. Everything was pristine, but an uncomfortable silence filled the space. Usually, Isabella would be near the living room reading a book or planning a baby shower. Today, her absence was deafening. He placed his keys on the console table and made his way to the bedroom. Their bed was untouched. Since morning, the sheets still rumpled where he had left them. He noticed a small detail. Isabella's nightgown was tossed on the chair, as though she'd changed in a hurry before leaving. An ache squeezed his heart. Flopping onto the bed, Jason raked his hands through his hair. He replayed the scene in the clinic hallway. Isabella's anguished face, the question he hadn't answered. Who is she? As if the question needed an answer now. The truth was out. He was a cheater, a father-to-be for two different women, and a liar who had used his fortune to keep secrets. An impulsive thought call, Charlotte. He needed to confirm she was okay, especially after the meltdown. But he also knew it might be the last thing Isabella would want him to do. Still, the guilt wouldn't let him rest. He grabbed his phone and dialed Charlotte's number. She picked up on the second ring. "Jason," she said, her voice still tinged with anger. "Are you calling to say goodbye? Or what?" He sighed heavily. "Charlotte, we need to talk calmly. That scene at the clinic was... I never wanted it to happen that way. Well, it did," she snapped. "And now your wife knows about me. About us. So where does that leave me? Where does that leave our baby?" Jason closed his eyes. He had to be cautious, but honesty was inescapable. "I don't know. I love you, Charlotte, but Isabella, she's my wife." He paused, feeling an overwhelming sense of helplessness. "I'm trying to figure this out." Charlotte was silent for a moment. Then she let out a soft, bitter laugh. "You men," she said, voice laden with disdain. "You play around, but when the moment of truth comes, you have no idea what you want. Well, guess what? I'm not going to disappear. And if you think you can just buy me off or hide me somewhere, you're mistaken." "Charlotte," Jason murmured, rubbing his temples. "That's not what I'm suggesting. I just need time." She scoffed. "Time is something I don't have." "I'm 5 months pregnant, Jason. Soon enough, my bump will be impossible to hide. People will talk, and I won't shield you from that unless you give me a reason." A wave of nausea hit Jason. Threats, ultimatums, it was spiraling out of control. "Okay, let's talk in person." "Maybe tomorrow evening," he ventured. He could sense her hesitation. "Fine," she said. "But don't you dare stand me up. I'm at the Edison Hotel, Suite 704. We'll talk this out then." And she hung up, leaving him with a buzzing phone in his hand and dread in his gut. A part of Jason wanted to call Isabella immediately after, but he suspected she wouldn't answer. Instead, he typed out a message. "I'm sorry. Please let me explain. I love you. Let me know where you are, so I can come to you." He hesitated, then hit send. The bubble delivered, but no response came. As the afternoon sun dipped behind the horizon, Jason wandered through his empty house. Gone were the days he would anticipate Isabella's voice calling from the kitchen. He ended up in the living room, eyes landing on a baby catalogue that Isabella had been reading. In it, he saw color-coded tabs marking cribs and strollers she liked. A single tear slipped down his cheek. She was so excited about starting a family with him. How had he been so callous? The silence weighed heavily, and he knew he couldn't just linger there, paralyzed by guilt. He picked up the phone again and dialed a number he rarely used. John Maxwell, his longtime friend and lawyer. John answered with his usual briskness. "Hey, Jason," he said. "What's going on?" "You sound off." Jason took a breath, deciding how much to divulge. "John, I have a situation. It's going to explode soon, and I might need legal advice. It's about my marriage and affair, and, well, it's complicated." John was silent for a beat. "Then I'll clear my schedule. Come by the office tomorrow morning. We'll talk." Jason hung up, feeling marginally relieved. At least he would be doing something. But no legal counsel in the world could patch the emotional crater he had blasted in Isabella's life. As the evening turned to night, he sat by the picture window overlooking the city lights. The glow of Los Angeles twinkled oblivious to his personal torment. Wealth had always given him a sense of control, but as he stared at the sky, he realized money was useless in the face of heartbreak. $1 million couldn't buy back trust, and it couldn't erase betrayal. All he could do now was wait. Wait to see if Isabella would respond. Wait to see how Charlotte would push him further, and wait to see whether his once perfect life would disintegrate into shambles. Unknown to him in Serena's loft, Isabella lay awake, tears long dried, but her mind swirling. She clutched her stomach, feeling the small flutters of life within. She had thought this baby would be a blessing for their marriage. But now every promise Jason made was stained with betrayal. In her mind, she saw Charlotte's smug face, heard the whooshing heartbeat of that second child, and felt an ice-cold certainty. No matter how hard she tried, things would never be the same again. Morning found Isabella at Serena's dining table staring at a half-eaten slice of toast. She barely touched her food, her appetite swallowed by anxiety. Across from her, Serena scrolled through messages on her phone. Occasionally she would glance at Isabella with concern. "You didn't sleep at all," Serena noted softly. "Maybe you should go see your obstetrician today. Stress like this isn't good for the baby." Isabella nodded, though she dreaded revisiting that clinic. Perhaps she could find another doctor somewhere far from the memory of Jason and Charlotte. "I'll call Dr. Brenner's office," she said. "Schedule something for tomorrow." Serena squeezed her friend's hand. "You need to think about the next steps, Bella. Whether that includes leaving Jason, or confronting Charlotte, or something else entirely. But do it soon. You can't float in limbo forever." Isabella swallowed hard. In her mind, she replayed the countless times Jason had looked at her with what she believed was genuine love. Could he have faked that? Was there any chance he truly regretted his actions? Her phone buzzed. Another text from Jason. "Please talk to me. I'm dying here." She sighed, turning the phone face down. She wasn't ready. not long after the doorbell rang, echoing through the loft. Serena raised an eyebrow. "Were you expecting someone?" Isabella asked, her nerves spiking. Serena shook her head and walked to the door. She peered through the peephole. "It's a courier," she murmured. Opening the door, Serena accepted an envelope addressed to Isabella. The courier gave a polite nod and departed. Isabella's hands shook as she opened the envelope. Inside was a short note and a USB flash drive. The note read, "I'm sorry for everything. I made a mess. Please watch this." It was signed simply Jason. Oh God. Isabella breathed tears threatening to resurface. "He's sending me cryptic messages now." She set the note aside, turning the USB flash drive over in her palm. "I don't know if I can handle more heartbreak." Serena placed a hand on her shoulder. "You decide. We can watch it together or you can toss it. Your call." Isabella stared at it for a moment, weighing her options. The curiosity clawed at her, but so did the fear of seeing some desperate apology, or worse, an attempt at manipulative justification. Finally, she sighed. "Let's watch it. Together." They moved to Serena's laptop. With trembling fingers, Isabella inserted the USB and waited for the video file to open. The screen flickered, and Jason's face appeared set against the background of their living room. He looked visibly distraught. Hair must tie undone. His eyes darted uncertainly at the camera. "Isabella," he began, voice low. "I know you won't talk to me. I tried calling, texting. So I made this to say what I need to say." He took a shaky breath. "First, I'm sorry. Beyond sorry. I betrayed you. I lied to you. And I can't defend it. I don't expect your forgiveness, but I want you to know the truth. Charlotte came into my life when we were hitting a rough patch maybe a year ago. I was weak, stupid. She was available. It was never supposed to go this far. But now there's a child involved. On screen." Jason swallowed, tears glistening in his eyes. "That doesn't justify what I did. I love you, Isabella. But I also care about Charlotte's child. That baby is innocent, and I'm torn apart. I want to do the right thing, but I don't know what that is anymore. I'm asking you, please, let me see you, talk to you, hold you. I want us. And our child." He paused, pressing his fingers to his eyes. "If you decide you can't forgive me, I'll respect that. But I need you to understand, I never wanted to hurt you. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right, even if it means letting you go." The video ended abruptly, freezing on Jason's anguished expression. The file closed, leaving Isabella and Serena in stunned silence. Isabella covered her mouth, trying to steady her breathing. She had never seen Jason so raw, so vulnerable. Serena glanced at her. "How do you feel?" Isabella shook her head. "I don't know. Angry. Hurt. But also," he sounded genuine, "God, I hate him for doing this to me." She let out a broken sob. "But a part of me wants to believe there's something worth salvaging." Serena rubbed circles on Isabella's back. "That's normal. You love him. You have a life, a marriage, a baby on the way. This is complicated, but you'll figure it out. Maybe talking to him is the first step, even if just to get closure." Later that afternoon, Isabella mustered the courage to drive back to the Harrington mansion. She found the gates open, as though Jason had left them that way, hoping she would come. Parking in the circular driveway, she took a moment to collect herself. The imposing house loomed full of memories, the day Jason carried her over the threshold after their wedding, the nights they danced in the living room to old jazz records. Inside, she found Jason pacing in the foyer. He looked up sharply when she entered. "Bella," he breathed, using the pet name he'd given her years ago. Immediately, his eyes welled with relief. "You came." She set down her purse, arms folded protectively over her baby bump. "Just to talk," she said curtly. "Don't expect anything else." He nodded, swallowing. "That's all I ask." They moved into the living room. Isabella took the armchair while Jason sat on the sofa, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Isabella drew a sharp breath. "Why?" she demanded. "I know you said we were going through a rough patch, but were you so quick to find comfort somewhere else?" Jason bowed his head. "I wish I had a simple answer. I guess I felt inadequate. You come from a strong family. Your father is always scrutinizing me, and I was stressed with the Harrington business deals. Charlotte just made me feel important. But that's no excuse. I know that." Isabella's eyes narrowed, tears threatening. "And you never thought about how it would destroy me. Destroy us?" He nodded miserably. "I was stupid. I kept thinking I would end it. Then Charlotte got pregnant, and I was paralyzed by guilt and fear." Anger flared in her. "So you let it continue? Let her rub her belly while I had no idea, all while you and I were trying for a child of our own?" Her voice broke. "How could you do that to me?" Jason slid to his knees in front of her, placing a tentative hand on her arm. "You have every right to hate me," he said, tears brimming. "I don't know if I can fix this, but I'll try. I want to be there for you and our child." He paused, voice quivering. "If you can't forgive me, I'll accept it. But I'm begging you, give me a chance to prove myself." Isabella stared down at him, torn between rage and the lingering love she still felt. She thought of the baby inside her, thought of the life she had dreamed of sharing with Jason. Could she still cling to that dream, or was it shattered beyond repair? After a moment, she stood. "I need time, Jason," she said, voice trembling. "I'm not saying I forgive you. I'm not saying we'll stay together. But I'll give you one chance to show me you're sincere. Because I have to think about this baby. I can't be reckless." Jason rose, relief flickering in his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered. "I won't let you down again." She looked away, a knot of anxiety tightening in her chest. "Don't make promises you can't keep," she warned. Then she stepped back, heading toward the door. He followed, cautious. "Do you want to stay here tonight?" he ventured. Isabella paused, considering. The house felt haunted by betrayal, but part of her wanted the familiar comfort of their home. Finally, she shook her head. "Not yet. I'm staying with Serena for a few more days. I'll let you know if I change my mind." She hesitated at the door, looking over her shoulder. "You said you care about Charlotte's baby. How do you plan on handling that?" He swallowed. "I'll handle my responsibility, but I promise it won't come at the cost of our child. I have no illusions about how hard this will be, but I'll do whatever it takes." She nodded, tears filling her eyes again. Without another word, she left. The door closed with a heavy finality behind her. Jason stood alone in the foyer, relief warring with uncertainty. He had gotten a small opening a chance, yet even the faintest hope felt precarious. How could he be a father to 2 children, each with a different mother? How could he mend the broken trust with Isabella while also providing for Charlotte's unborn child. The mansion felt colder than ever, and in the distance, Jason almost imagined hearing the echo of that tiny heartbeat from the ultrasound, resonating like a reminder of his moral failure. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling a shaky breath. Time was ticking, and the cost of every decision was growing by the minute. Days stretched into a tense routine. Isabella stayed at Serena's loft, while Jason oscillated between desperate attempts to salvage his marriage and quiet dread over Charlotte's demands. He finally scheduled a meeting with Charlotte at the Edison Hotel Suite 704, as promised. Evening fell, and he drove to the upscale hotel, located in the heart of downtown Los Angeles, checking his reflection in the rearview mirror. Jason saw a man who looked older than his 32 years, a man burdened by secrets and lies. With a determined sigh, he left his car with the valet and headed inside. Charlotte answered the door in a silky robe, her face carefully made up. The suite smelled of expensive perfume and fresh flowers. She'd clearly gone all out to make an impression. If the situation hadn't been so grave, Jason might have found it alluring. Now it only intensified his anxiety. "You're late," Charlotte observed, stepping aside to let him in. Jason glanced at the clock on the bedside table. Only 5 minutes past their agreed time, but he didn't argue. "I'm here, aren't I?" he said quietly, removing his suit jacket. Charlotte crossed her arms over her chest, her robe opening slightly to reveal her growing belly. "So tell me, did you patch things up with your precious wife?" Jason winced. "She's not just my wife. She's the mother of my child, and we're trying to figure things out. So you haven't told her you're leaving her for me, then—" Charlotte's lips curved into a sardonic smile. "Or is that off the table entirely?" He shook his head. "I never promised I'd leave Isabella." "Charlotte, I care about you, but I don't see a scenario where we can be together as a normal couple, not after everything that's happened." Her eyes flashed with anger. "So I'm just the mistress who's carrying your baby. You'll pay child support, give me hush money. Is that it?" He tensed. "That's not what I want. I want to be involved in my child's life. But I also want to stay with Isabella if she'll have me." Charlotte let out a bitter laugh. "You think Isabella will be okay with you playing father to some other woman's baby? You're delusional. Trust me. I've seen these stories before. The wives eventually force you to cut ties or you run off, and I end up alone raising a child while you visit once a month like a guilty benefactor." Jason's shoulders slumped. "I'm trying to do the right thing, Charlotte. This child didn't ask to be born into this mess. If you'll let me, I'll provide for you both, be there for you. But I can't leave my wife." A tense silence followed. Charlotte closed her eyes, fighting tears. When she looked at him again, there was a quiet desperation in her gaze. "I thought we had something more," she whispered. "You told me you loved me." He exhaled regret, flooding his face. "I did. I do. But it's not as simple as love. I made vows, and there's our baby too. I'm torn, Charlotte." She bit her lip, tears welling. A moment of vulnerability cracked her tough exterior. "I hate how complicated this is," she said, voice trembling. "I hate that I'm pregnant and alone in this hotel suite while you run around trying to fix your marriage. It's humiliating." Jason's heart squeezed. He stepped closer, tentatively, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone," he murmured. "I promise you I'll be there. This child won't grow up fatherless." She looked away, silent. Her tears glistened, but didn't fall. Finally, she inhaled sharply. "Fine. But if I see you neglecting this baby, I'll do whatever it takes. Tell the media, your friends, your business associates. I'm not going to let you ruin my life and walk away unscathed." He nodded, fully aware of the leverage she held. The Harrington name was a brand of its own. If this scandal became public, the repercussions would be severe, not just for his reputation, but for the entire family business. "I understand," he said. "And you have every right to protect yourself and the baby." She regarded him for a long moment, her tears now replaced by a determined strength. "Then go," she said. "Do whatever you need to do with Isabella. But don't forget when this baby is born. I expect you there." With a heavy heart, Jason turned to leave. Before he did, he hesitated, considering whether to kiss her goodbye or offer some small gesture of comfort. One look at Charlotte's tense expression told him not to. Instead, he left quietly, the door clicking shut behind him, like an exclamation point on the havoc he'd created. Meanwhile, Isabella mustered the courage to visit her father, Charles Montemeo. She hadn't told him the details yet, but when Charles saw her puffy eyes and trembling demeanor, he grew alarmed. At 55, Charles was a commanding presence, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, and fiercely protective of his daughter. They sat in his Spanish-style villa in Bel Air, overlooking manicured gardens. Charles poured them both a glass of water, then took a seat across from her. "What's happened, sweetheart?" Isabella swallowed. "Jason, he's been unfaithful," she began, tears already forming. She explained as much as she could the affair, the clinic scene, the mistress's pregnancy. Charles listened with clenched fists. Fury rippled across his features. "That bastard," he growled. "I knew he was trouble. Too much money, too little discipline." Isabella sniffled, trying to hold herself together. "I'm so confused, Dad. He says he's sorry, but he has another child on the way." Charles rose from his seat and paced. "You're not going back to him, are you? You should pack your things, move in here. I'll handle the lawyers. We'll take him for everything he's worth." She glanced down at her stomach, her hand protectively resting over her belly. "It's not that simple, Dad. I'm pregnant, too. I love him. Or I did. Maybe I still do. I can't just walk away without thinking about the consequences." Charles's expression softened, but his anger simmered just below the surface. "He broke your trust, Bella. He humiliated you. You think he's going to be a good father now? The man lied to you for months." Her eyes filled again. "I don't know," she whispered. "But maybe there's a chance he really does regret it." His fatherly instincts burned. Charles approached, drawing her into a fierce hug. "If he truly regrets it, he'll have to prove it. But I want you to know you're not alone. I'll support any decision you make, but if I see him hurting you again, I'll make sure he regrets the day he thought he could mess with my daughter." Isabella nodded into her father's chest, comforted by his protective stance, yet overwhelmed by the turmoil swirling around her. A part of her wanted to run back to Jason's arms to cling to the hope that they could mend. Another part wanted to sever ties and protect herself from any further betrayal. Charles pulled back, placing a hand on her cheek. "You and your baby will always have a home here, no matter what you decide." She thanked him, tears in her eyes, and left shortly after promising to keep him informed. As she drove away from the villa, she felt her emotions as entangled as ever. She pictured Jason's tormented face from the video, Charlotte's smug expression at the clinic, her father's seething rage. In the midst of it all was her unborn child, innocent and unknowing. That night alone in Serena's guest room, Isabella stared at the ceiling, replaying the words her father had spoken and the vow Jason had made. She wanted the perfect family she had dreamed of. But could she trust Jason again? Could she handle sharing his love with another child that wasn't hers? Sleep refused to come. In the silence, she murmured a prayer for clarity that seemed to linger unanswered. 2 weeks later, Isabella found herself sitting at a small table on the terrace of the Harrington mansion. She had agreed to meet Jason to discuss the future of their marriage. The sun was bright overhead, the day deceptively beautiful for such a fraught conversation. Across from her, Jason nervously toyed with a glass of iced tea. A tension crackled between them, but there was also a yearning for reconciliation. "I've looked into couples therapy," Jason said after a moment. "I found a highly recommended counselor, Dr. Elaine Porter. We could try it if you're willing." Isabella studied him. He did look different, more earnest, perhaps even repentant. "I'm not sure if therapy can fix everything," she replied softly. "But I suppose it can't hurt." A cautious smile touched his lips. "Then let's do it. Together." They were interrupted by the sound of footsteps. A maid approached with a cordless phone. "Mr. Harrington, Ms. Devereaux is on the line. She says it's urgent." Isabella's mood instantly darkened. "Of course," she muttered, folding her arms. "Go ahead. Talk to her." Jason looked pained, but took the phone. "Charlotte," he said quietly, stepping a few feet away. Isabella couldn't hear the words, but saw his face go pale. He ended the call quickly, turning back to Isabella. "She's in the hospital," he explained, fear in his eyes. "Some complications with the pregnancy." She asked me to come." Isabella's mouth went dry. A swirl of jealousy, pity, and anxiety churned in her stomach. "You need to go," she managed, though her voice trembled. He nodded quickly, grabbing his keys. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "We'll talk later. I promise." And just like that, he was gone. Isabella sat there, staring at the abandoned iced tea, feeling her heart break fresh again. The reality that Charlotte might lose the baby, Jason's baby, reminded Isabella of just how deeply entwined their lives had become. Despite her resentment, Isabella felt a pang of concern. A part of her understood if she were the one rushed to the hospital, she'd expect Jason to be there in an instant. It was only human decency. But another part of her raged, "Why am I sharing my husband's support with another woman?" Hours passed in anxious silence. By late afternoon, Isabella's phone buzzed. A text from Jason. "She's stable. Doctors said it was stress-related. I'm staying with her a bit longer." Isabella fought the urge to throw her phone across the terrace. Stress. Of course it was stress. Charlotte was in a hotel suite, pregnant with a man who wasn't entirely hers, threatened by the possibility of losing him. Isabella couldn't exactly blame the woman for feeling stressed, but the knowledge that Jason was by her side in the hospital, it felt like a blade twisting in her heart. Night fell before Jason returned. Isabella was still at the mansion, having mulled over the possibility of staying in the guest room, her home in a sense, but now a foreign land. Jason walked in, looking exhausted. Loosening his tie, he dropped onto the couch. "How is she?" Isabella asked from across the room, arms folded protectively. "She'll be okay," Jason said, voice subdued. "The doctor wants her to avoid any emotional turmoil. She'll be on bed rest for a while." Isabella nodded, tension coiling within her. And you plan to be with her? Jason's eyes flickered. I need to be supportive, especially if she has no one else. But that doesn't mean I'm abandoning you. She scoffed. That's exactly what it feels like. Every time Charlotte calls, you rush to her side. Do you know how that looks? How it makes me feel? Anguish surfaced in his gaze. I do know. But what am I supposed to do? It's my child, too. I can't ignore that. She bit her lip, tears threatening. What about our child, Jason? I'm here, stressed, anxious, and pregnant. And you're off comforting your mistress. He stood, crossing the room to her. Gently he reached for her hands. She resisted at first, but eventually let him take them. I realize how unfair this is. I wish I could undo my mistakes, but right now I'm trying to do right by everyone, especially the unborn children. Please, Isabella, believe me when I say I love you. I'm not doing this to hurt you. She closed her eyes, tears slipping out. I know you're in an impossible situation, she whispered. I hate that it's you who put us here. Jason drew her into a cautious embrace. She was stiff in his arms but didn't pull away entirely. Let's go to therapy, he murmured. Let's see if Dr. Porter can help us navigate this. Please. Slowly, Isabella nodded against his chest, tears wetting his shirt. A flicker of hope lit within her, though overshadowed by doubts. Maybe therapy could salvage their marriage, or maybe it would expose that it was broken beyond repair. A week later, they found themselves in Dr. Elaine Porter's cozy office. Soft lighting, plush chairs, and the faint scent of lavender greeted them. Dr. Porter, a poised woman in her 50s, guided them through the initial session. Isabella explained her devastation. Jason confessed his infidelity and the double pregnancy scenario. It's going to be a challenging road. Dr. Porter said, her tone gentle but firm. Infidelity can be forgiven, but seldom forgotten. And with another baby in the picture, you're dealing with a permanent reminder of the betrayal. Isabella's eyes welled. Jason squeezed her hand. I'll do whatever it takes, he said quietly. And you, Isabella, Dr. Porter asked. Are you willing to engage in this process, knowing it might not guarantee you the outcome you desire? Isabella inhaled shakily. Yes, she murmured. If not for me, then for my baby. The session delved into painful territory. Jason's reasons for straying Isabella's sense of inadequacy. The overshadowing presence of Charlotte's pregnancy. Dr. Porter asked challenging questions, urging them to dig beneath the surface. By the end, they both left emotionally drained, but strangely lighter. In the car ride home, Jason reached for Isabella's hand. This time, she let him hold it without pulling away. Thank you for not giving up on me, he said, voice soft. She stared out the window at the passing traffic. I'm not sure I'm doing it for you, she confessed. I'm doing it for our child, and maybe for the memory of what we used to have. But I still don't trust you, Jason. I don't know if I ever will again. He nodded, accepting her words like a sentence. I understand. As they pulled into the mansion's driveway, they found Charles Montemayor, waiting at the steps, a dark scowl etched into his features. Isabella felt her heart rate spike. She hadn't told her father about the therapy sessions yet, knowing he would disapprove. But here he was, uninvited, poised for confrontation. Jason parked, stepping out to greet him with a cordial nod. Mr. Montemayor, he said carefully. Charles eyed him with thinly veiled contempt. Jason, he replied, voice cold. Then his gaze shifted to Isabella as she climbed out of the car. I need a word with my daughter in private. Isabella's stomach churned. She gave Jason a quick glance before following her father into the house. They made their way to the living room. Charles spun to face her, arms crossed. "You're still here," he stated bluntly, anger simmering. "After everything he's done, you're still entertaining his pleas." Isabella bristled, folding her arms. "It's my marriage, Dad, not yours. I'm trying therapy with Jason." Charles exhaled, shaking his head. "You're setting yourself up for more pain. Don't you see that he'll run to that other woman whenever she snaps her fingers?" Her eyes flickered with frustration. "Maybe. Maybe not. But I need to figure that out on my own." He narrowed his eyes. "So you're ignoring my advice, Dad," Isabella said, feeling her resolve strengthen. "I'm not ignoring you. I value your concern. But I'm an adult, and I have to make my own choices. Jason made a horrible mistake. He's trying to make amends. I'm giving him a chance because I owe it to my child and to myself." Charles studied her for a moment, then sighed heavily. "I just don't want to see you hurt," he said, his voice softening. Tears welled up in Isabella's eyes. "I know, Dad. I know." With that, Charles pulled her into a hug, murmuring reassurances and fatherly advice. Jason lingered at the door, watching them, tension etched in his posture. He knew his relationship with Charles Montemayor was probably beyond repair, but if he could at least win back Isabella, it would be worth every effort. That evening, after Charles departed, Jason and Isabella shared a silent dinner. The air was still thick with unresolved questions, but for the first time, they sat at the same table, ate the same meal, and shared a glimmer of unity in an otherwise fractured world. The days ahead promised more therapy sessions, more hospital visits for Charlotte, more awkward questions from the Harrington employees, and more protective outbursts from Charles. Yet beneath all the tension, there was the faintest shimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, they could find a way through. Isabella finished her meal and caught Jason's gaze across the table. For a moment, they shared a silent connection, a reminder of a time when they were just a couple in love, unburdened by betrayal. If only they could reclaim that. But fate, it seemed, had woven their destinies into a far more complicated tapestry than either of them could have imagined. In the months that followed, Jason and Isabella struggled to rebuild their marriage through therapy, difficult conversations, and quiet, painful honesty. Charlotte's pregnancy remained a constant reminder of the betrayal that had fractured their world. Yet Isabella, though heartbroken, found her strength protecting herself and her unborn child with quiet determination. Jason, filled with regret, devoted himself to earning back the trust he had shattered, not with promises, but with consistent actions. Their story didn't end with a perfect resolution, but it offered something more powerful, a glimpse of healing. Because forgiveness isn't a one-time gesture. It's a choice made over and over. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more emotional journeys that reflect the messiness and beauty of real life.